The very first major hip hop release, Rapper's Delight, was a fraud and almost destroyed hip hop as we know it. What up, world? Your boy Challz Brown back again, talking fact. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell. All right, man. You know how when you feel when you first find out Santa Claus wasn't real? You know how it hurt when you were told that Santa is your mom's and she's the one that buys those gifts and put them under the tree and makes you wait until sometimes midnight or the morning to open those gifts. And when they was there all the time, they were there the whole time, and she wrapped them and she put them in the closet and hid them from you, and you couldn't go in that closet for whatever reason. You didn't know, but those were your gifts in that closet, right? She bought them with her check. But for years, you thought that that was the greatest thing. You thought Santa, you had to, I'm so good, I'm going to be so good. And I'm going to get on the nice list and all these things until one day it becomes apparent that Santa is not real. You still believe in Christmas to a degree, and you're still happy on Christmas. You're happy to get those gifts and you enjoy it, you respect it, but you don't have any delusions that it's coming from some guy from the North Pole. That's where I'm at with this hip hop right now. I used to believe that Rapper's Delight was the greatest thing to hip hop. I used to would argue you down that Rapper's Delight made hip hop what it is, and it wouldn't be the worldwide phenomenon it was without Rapper's Delight. And you couldn't tell me nothing negative about Sugarhill Gang. And you still can't. Even though I know what I know, and I'm going to tell you what I know, I still have mad respect for what they've done. Even though Sugarhill Gang was a one-hit wonder without any other follow-up hits that mattered on the charts per se, I still love this record, right? But when you find out everything that took place before, during, and after this record, and you call yourself a hip-hop head, you have to look at it sideways. So with the recent influx of all of these old school artists inserting their opinions into what is going on now, I decided to start to look at the old school. Like, what was so great? What was so amazing about our culture that we revere? And every time someone starts talking about the culture, they throw these old school names up and these old school records, which I was there for the most part. I was there in 1979 when Rapper's Delight dropped on the radio. It changed everything, right? You couldn't hear nothing else but Rapper's Delight, right? You just couldn't hear nothing else. And you had Planet Rock, you had Melly Mel, Grandmaster Flash, and the Message and things like that. But the first big one was Rapper's Delight. For those of you who have not heard it, I need you to first, before you finish this video, go listen to Rapper's Delight. With the rappers on it, Big Bank Hank, Henry, Big Bank Hank Jackson, Guy Master G O'Brien, and Michael Wonder Mike Wright. Now, the reason the title is very shocking because I wanted you to understand what I'm doing. No one really talks about this record in its proper context. In today's hip hop, like not even today's hip hop, in hip hop standards, as we try to solidify what's real, what's not real, this would be considered a fraud record. We get a lot of talk about who writes this, who wrote that, who did this, who did that. But in the annals of hip hop, and I'm gonna get in on the Message on a different video. We're gonna talk about Melly Mel's Message in a different video. We're gonna talk about more in depth about the Sugarhill Records legacy in a different video, the way they jerk their artists around. But right now we're gonna keep it on this one, which is Rapper's Delight. And a lot of people like to criticize the corporations. Like as of recently as this year, we've had several rappers. I'm not going to say no names because I don't want to make the content go their way. I don't want to make it about these guys. But some rappers have noticed that the corporations are driving hip hop a certain way. The corporations, when you check their playlist on Spotify and these other things, most of the rapping is really, really degrading to a degree, or like it's very, some of it is drug related, a lot of drug use in the raps, a lot of alcohol use, a lot of we in the club, just a lot of stuff that doesn't always matter in the long run, right? We like to hear that, we like to party, but if your top 50 records all contain the exact same subject matter, you're doing something wrong. And a lot of people like to say rap got messed up when the corporations got into it. Yes and no, because what they mean is when the white culture vultures got into it. But we're going to talk about what happened with the very first record, with the very first rap group, before all of that even was even viable, because they weren't making rap records. They didn't see no money in it. The very first rap record was brought out by a black label, right? Now, so major rap record that popped. So I'm going to give the credit to Fatback Band. They had a B-side called King Tim III, Personality Jock. A lot of people credit that as the first recorded rap song, right? Now, rap wasn't something you could record back in the day, because what they were doing was talking over R&B loops. So it was an already made song. They just took the break part of it, and the rapper started rapping over that, while the DJ spun. They mostly was talking about the DJ and talking about the party itself that they were in, and talking about the neighborhood, and talking about the dancers, and a little bit about themselves. But the rappers mostly were talking about the DJ. They only started rapping because the DJ was like, my show got to be better than his show, so I need somebody to talk about how good my show is. So that's why the rappers came up. They started getting rappers to rap, right? It wasn't about the rapper. The rapper was only there to tell you about the DJ. So let's just start there. So that's what hip-hop was. They hip-hop, like Melly Mel says, his brother was making fun of the man that got, I think it was a family member that got, went to the army, and he used to say, oh, you're going to be marching like hip, hop, right? And Melly Mel says he coined the term MC. That's what they said. They made up rapping, hip MCs and this and that. Hip-hop, that's what they credited to, Melly Mel and them guys, right? So with all that being said, you only were a hip-hopper if you were breakdancing or you were rapping about a DJ. The rapping became more and more forefront when more rappers started rapping, naturally, right? You started having crews of rappers, 4 or 5 rappers up there rapping, right? 25 breakdancers out there breaking in the crowd. So it's expanding, it's becoming a thing. Now it's the sound of New York on the underground. It's not this little thing no more where one rapper's rapping about the DJ. Now it's about Busy B and all these different guys. Fantastic, you know what I'm saying? All these different people, right? MC Shot Rock and all these different people. Even the breakers are becoming famous. Stretch and Crazy Legs and all these different people, they're becoming famous for what they're doing. Then we got movies. We got Wild Style, we got B Street and all these different things, right? It's starting to pop. But before all of that, there needed to be a record. Someone needed to make a record. The record labels wasn't touching it. They said, I'm not touching that. Ain't no money in it. Plus, the rappers was like, we only really rap on break beats. We don't make music. We don't have no studio. We don't have no equipment. You need money for that. They didn't need anyway. They were doing park jams. They were making a little money, but Grandmaster Caz said they were spending more money to make their speakers and stuff bigger. Only person even had a manager. I believe he said, who had the manager? Wow, he said, and I can't even remember who he said. But it was one rapper, maybe Ben Curtis Blow. Somebody had a manager, and they were the only one represented by any management, so they didn't even have a manager. I wish I could remember. Busy Beat, somebody, right? End of the day, long story short, Grandmaster Caz wanted a manager. Because he's like, that guy looks big. They have a whole. No, I think it was Grandmaster Flash and them. I think they were the only ones that had managers, a team going around, setting up shows, getting them gigs. They were getting paid, and they had a whole movement going on. So he wanted to match that, so he got a manager, and his name was Henry Hank Jackson. Actually, Big Bank Hank, one of the rappers on Rapper's Delight. Now, we would have never gotten this song if Sylvia Robinson and her husband Joe, who were already doing R&B music since the 50s. They had another label. I believe it was called All Platinum. And that label started to go down in the 70s. And by 1979, apparently the label was on the verge of bankruptcy. They were about to lose it all. This is according to different sources and research, right? So once they were about to lose everything, she ended up in a club in Harlem, and she heard a DJ calling and responding to a crowd, and the crowd responded back to a way she had never heard before. She was told that this was hip-hop. They were doing this new thing called hip-hop. She was like, right there, she brainstormed and said, I'm going to take this music, this art form, and put it on record. Basically, like, I'm going to save my label with this new thing, because that's what people do. They look for the new thing to invest in. So she saw this thing happening and decided to make a hip-hop record. Like I told you, nobody had done it before, and nobody was going around saying, what the Fatback Band? No, it wasn't. That was a B-side, so it wasn't considered whatever. It was already popping in New York, but it wasn't everywhere else yet. So Sylvia Robinson decided to gather up a group of rappers. Not a group that was already existing, but a group of rappers. Now, allegedly, some people turned it down or whatever, like it was supposed to be a real rapper he turned it down, whatever. But end of the day, Sylvia Robinson ends up at a pizza place in Inglewood, New Jersey. And she hears a man named Big Bank Hank rapping over Grandmaster Caz, who is AKA Casanova Fly. He has all his music because he's his manager. So he's rapping to all of his stuff in the pizza parlor. I believe it was called Crispy Crust Pizza or something like that in Jersey. He's rapping, flipping pieces, da-da-da. So she hears that. She's like, can you come outside to the car and do those same raps, because we want to hear you, see if you will fit this group. So he comes out, spits the verses by Caz. She's like, oh, snap, we're going to sign you. You're in, right? Not only is he a rapper, she's making a group. So apparently she's on the street in that same area pulling over anybody black that look like they can do this hip-hop thing. And she pulls over Master G, and Wonder Mike some kind of way gets involved. And there was a fourth guy who ended up not sticking with the group. So it was going to be 4 people in Sugarhill Gang. When she made her record label, she called it Sugarhill Records for the neighborhood in Harlem that she was from, right? Sugarhill Records is born. She got these guys off the street. Some of them could rap, some of them couldn't. Big Bang Hank is using Casanova Fly's raps. Gets in the group. He never tells Sylvia, these aren't my raps. And the rapper that wrote this is very famous in New York already on the underground circuit. I should just let you meet him and bring him in for this record, because this is really his raps. He didn't do that. He took the chance and jumped in it and said this guy's rap. So the one thing you can say about this record, the remarkable thing is they did it in one take. The entire record. They played all the music in one take, then they went and brought the rappers in, and the rappers did their verses all in one take. So this is a one take, it's like a live recording. Now, what they also did do was use part of a song by Chic, who I believe Nile Rodgers is the head producer of that band. And the song is called Good Times. Good Times was already popping. Good Times was already a hit record. Black people everywhere, white people, everyone already heard Good Times. Good Times, boom, 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 boom. Like that was already jamming. So she took a popular song already and threw these 3 guys on it. They were not from New York. They were not in the hip-hop scene. They were not rappers on the hip-hop circuit. These are guys who, one of them literally took rhymes that wasn't his, and the other 2, I believe they could rap a little bit or what have you. They were already rapping a little bit, but they weren't New York rappers by no stretch, right? So this is not a New York. This record is nothing to do with Sugarhill. The Bronx, I just told you, she named that after the Harlem neighborhood, Sugarhill Records. The first 3 rappers off of this record label are not from there, right? They're from Jersey. right? So, end of the day, Big Bank Hank was only working in the pizza shop because he was managing Challz, and he borrowed money from his family to get Challz and them some new speakers. I told you before, they were running around with speakers. They needed a bigger sound set to get the bigger parties, and yada yada. Challz said they spent more money making hip hop than they actually did off hip hop. It was a labor of love, right? So Big Bank Hank, who was Henry Jackson at first, now he's Big Bank Hank. He goes right on the record. He says, well, I'm the CASN, the OVAN, the rest is FLY, right? I missed out N on there, but he's Casanova, right? So he spit Grandmaster Challz's real name in the verse because he's not a writer. He said everything that this man already wrote. So he basically is on this record, one of the greatest verses in the history of rap is not even his verse. He stole it from the guy that he's managing, right? The guy that he's managing is a real hip hopper out in the streets. The other two guys are from Jersey, and they spit on this record. Now, this record, again, they used Sheik's Good Times, didn't get any permission, didn't clear it with Niles, and didn't get any type of paperwork up on it, so they ended up getting sued. The record it didn't go number one, but it broke the top 40. It changed hip-hop forever, right? Now, with all of that being said, what we don't realize when we look back on the record is it went to a label who had nothing to do with the movement of hip-hop. And what we like to do is try to act like hip-hop got ruined when the corporations came in and sucked the money out. But the very first record we heard, that was a corporate move to suck the money out. Because they didn't find any rappers. They didn't go get anybody in the game that's out here with their blood, sweat, and tears. Now, the culture was built off of this record. A lot of people, I learned about rap with this record. These guys were well-spoken, clear, concise. You know what I'm saying? They had very catchy rhymes. The beat was great. It was an awesome record. This record will go down in history. And I got pictures with these guys. When I did an event, I got to take a picture. I got a picture with Master G and Wonder Mike, if I'm not mistaken. Big Bank Hank had already passed, right? If I'm not mistaken. He passed in 2014. But he wasn't there for whatever reason. I don't believe I got a picture with Big Bank Hank. But I still revere these guys for what they have done. But as the culture, we need to understand what happened when we try to say, oh, these corporations came in and sucked it from the very first record you heard. They were sucking this dry. They were draining this dry. And everybody on that label afterwards has been fighting for 40 years to get their royalties back. They just got the royalty right now. I believe a few months ago. They just won a final court case to revert those royalties. They've been getting jerked since the very first record. Everybody after that record, Melly Mel, Grandmaster Flash, MC Sha Rock, all of them people have been fighting with Sugarhill Records for 40 years to get their royalties back. So from day one, when we first heard that record, rappers been getting screwed. And the real reason that the title says it destroyed hip-hop, because what they say is hip-hop wasn't about what they made it on that record. Right? That wasn't the feeling of what they were doing in New York. A lot of people in New York can't stand that record. But it was the biggest record. Imagine you're in New York, this thing you created, and then a record comes on, it's all over the place, and you don't know none of the rappers on it. You're like, who is these guys rapping? We started rap. And what it did was, yes, it exposed us all to hip-hop. And that's the gift and the curse. Sometimes life is going to have things where they're going to give you exactly what you want, but it's going to have a caveat right in it. So it gave the world hip hop, but it gave it to you with 3 non-rappers and the song they stole. Right? So you have to take it with a grain of salt next time you hear rappers delight. Shout out to Sylvia Robinson and Joe Robinson for having the vision to put out a hip hop record, but that vision is really tainted because a lot of these rappers were severely burnt and never paid. And a lot of these guys on these records not even credited. A lot of the instrumental, the in-house musicians, they're not credited. A lot of these guys that have input on the record didn't get a cut, didn't get anything. So it's a grain of salt when we revere and idolize these old records and these old ideologies that we put. This is hip hop. Is this hip hop? Is that? I just wanted to be clear that 1979 was a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. And the ripples of that have affected us for years because a lot of rappers after that got burnt under these same tactics and contracts and these same moves where, yeah, I'll get you later, and they never get you. And they pass on and their kids get the record label and the kids do whatever they want, and now you're fighting with the kids for the label, for the money, right? So what I'm saying is we can't repeat these mistakes of the past, and we got to be clear about when we handing out all of these gold medals for participation and being a pioneer. Some of this stuff was just an opportunity that somebody ran with, and we took it as a genuine movement, but it really was somebody that was not trying to go broke at the time, right? Now, you can't take nothing away from what Sugarhill Records did. It did some great stuff, just like Tommy Boy Records. Right now, Tommy Boy Records is vilified, right? They're looked at as the worst because what they've done to a lot of artists like De La Soul. I believe Jizza was on there. I believe Africa Bambaataa was on Tommy Boy. I believe House of Pain is on Tommy Boy. It's so many artists on Tommy Boy that we used to want to be signed to Tommy Boy, but now we realize that was the worst label. They were jerking everybody. So we just got to put it in proper perspective when we revere these records and we look at these things as, oh my God, that's the essence of hip hop. When in fact, some of the stuff didn't come along like you thought it did. And a lot of these rhymes we're saying wasn't written by the guy, the words that's coming out the guy's mouth. We're going to talk about that later. But I want to leave it at that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did rappers delight ruin hip-hop as we know it? Because at the end of the day, what happened when I say it ruined it, a lot of the artists that followed it had to go that lane when that really wasn't what they were doing out there. You had to try to have this hot hit now. You have to try to be kind of a corporate structure. It took it away from what they were actually doing, the liveness of it. They were doing it live out on the block every day, off the top, just coming up with new things, just being competitive out there. And these ones took it and stole it and corporatized it. And that's where we are now. Let me know what you think in the comments. CLBMG.com. I'm going to catch y'all on that flip side. Hit the like button, subscribe, share the video. Show some love. I got a couple other things on the other channel, CLBMG Network. We always doing something. We up to 3 or 4 shows now. We about to get an app, Roku app. Fire stick is great, get ugly. I'm going to catch y'all on the flip. Peace.
CLB.